Write to your MP. Why are you my elected official when the waiting list is like this? What are you doing about it? So I even threw my doctor title around. Imagine. And he said, oh, you're a GP trainee. And then I was like, oh, don't be afraid to make a fuss.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You are beautiful. You are powerful. You are worthy. Your crown is your glory.
Hey beautiful, welcome back to the Kia Convos podcast. This is a space for all things self-care, wellness and empowerment. I'm your host, Kate Anwar, and today I am so excited for our guest. We have the gorgeous Dr. Rumbi. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming down. I've been looking forward to having a conversation with you. I can't wait to get into it. But yeah, thanks so much for coming.
Like I said, I'm really pleased to be here. And I don't know if you want to tell the story of today, but
I mean, I considered it, but it's been a journey today. But we are here now.
yes. And the best stories often start with journeys. So I think we're going to have a great conversation.
Definitely. 100%. Yeah. The morning is gone. We are here now. So I usually like to kick off with just asking my guests to let the audience know who they are, what you do, and a bit about your background. So who is Dr. Rumbi?
Absolutely. So I am a resident doctor in the NHS, training to be a GP. And in addition to that, I also run Galacie Health, which is a women's health consultancy. Now, because I like hard things, before I was a doctor, I was a midwife. And I would say studying to be a midwife was a lot harder than studying to be a doctor for various reasons, but that's a conversation for another day.
Okay.
So that really started my passion for women's health, I would say, was midwifery. And then from there, going into medicine and seeing all the things that I've seen and how oftentimes women have to shout a lot harder to be heard. And then when they do shout, they're called difficult, and yet the system's not working for them. And I found myself doing a lot of advocacy. So I was advocating a lot.
Okay, sure.
But sometimes you need solutions. You can only advocate to the rooftop. Sometimes you actually need to shake up the system and bring a solution. And that's what we are trying to do with Galacie. So that's a little bit about me and my working background.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get into that, what was it like before you? So I guess, did you always have a passion for medicine, for caring for people? What did it look like as you were growing up before you became a midwife first? Absolutely.
I did. I really did. I think it's that oldest daughter-grandchild thing. So speaking for myself, I'm an only child, but I'm very close to my cousins. And all the cousins that are older than me are boys.
Okay.
I was the first girl, and I think sometimes that does come with a different type of responsibility, especially within the family context. And with that, I've always been nurturing. I've always been more sort of a caring person.
Okay.
And I always found that would be something in that nature would be my future profession. So I wanted to be a doctor since I was a child. I applied when I was 18. I didn't get in. Hence, I did midwifery, which was, I think, the most perfect thing for me, and then went back and applied for medicine, and then we find ourselves here. But it was always in my destiny.
Yeah, sure. What were some of the main things that you faced being a midwife, essentially? Is that what birthed, I guess, your initial passion for advocating for women?
Yes.
Yeah. So what kind of things did you face when you were a midwife?
So I trained to be a midwife in East London at the Royal London Hospital. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Whitechapel demographic, but there's a lot of people that don't speak English as their native language, for example. And the experiences that they would have and how sometimes they were able to advocate for themselves within the family structure or maybe with an interpreter. But other times you would see things that you're thinking, I wouldn't want to have this experience. And as an 18, 19-year-old student midwife, there's power dynamics there where you're aiming to help to advocate, you're aiming to speak for women, but sometimes you haven't found your voice. And I think that whole process, that learning helped me find my voice to be able to be like, actually, no. What does she want? What's her concerns? What are her expectations? But that took time. And I think that was a really formative time for me. In terms of working as a midwife, I worked from East London to Belfast, like completely different demographics. And where I worked as a midwife was phenomenal.
Okay, sure.
It was the care that women received, the care that families received was, if I was having a baby, if I could pack my life up and go to Belfast to have my baby at that particular hospital, I would. You know, that's how good the care was. And the difference that I saw there was ownership and community. Where I worked in Northern Ireland, you could easily bump into the woman you helped deliver in Tesco, Asda, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was a certain onus on how to treat people. Whereas I felt where I trained, it was such a sea of people. It was so busy. And these were faces that you may never see again. So there was that loss of ownership on the care that was being given, or loss of ownership on people, you know, as a community. So yeah, I think it was two differing experiences, but both really led me to where I am. So that second experience helped me develop that voice. When you're in a space where people are listening and hearing, you feel comfortable to speak up because you're going to be heard.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of discussion at the moment over the past few years about the difference in care, in quality of care when it comes to Black women versus women that aren't necessarily of colour. Is that something you've experienced firsthand when working?
Interestingly, where I worked as a midwife, I didn't look after a single Black woman at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the demographics are completely different.
Yeah.
So from my working life, I can't say that it's something I've seen firsthand. However, I don't live under a rock.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, you see what's going on, and I'm a huge fan of 5 Times More. It's an organization.
Yeah.
And all the work that they've brought to light, you get to hear people's stories. And unfortunately, the statistics are the statistics. They didn't pluck the numbers out of thin air. They're telling a story.
Yeah.
So I'm very conscious that is absolutely happening.
Yeah. So during your time as a midwife and then the transition, were you online at that point, or did that come about much later?
I had a blog when I was 18, and it was about natural hair. So I'm chronically online. I've been online since online was a place to be. And that's evolved depending on what I'm interested in at the time. So like I said, when I was younger, it was about natural hair because that's what I was interested in. And then I think I must have taken a break when I was a student midwife, because like I said, that was a very challenging time.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because you're studying, you're working, you're trying to balance so many things. And then I got back online when I started medical school. So that's when I was, I think, back online from a health and well-being perspective.
Sure.
And that then developed, you know, it starts as, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm studying, this is what I'm interested in, to when you see more of the world, you have more experiences, and you're like, this is what other people are experiencing, this is what's going on, let's change things.
Yeah, sure. So talk to me about your experience, I guess, as you transitioned medical school, becoming a doctor. Mm-hmm. Love that for you. What did that transition look like, I guess, against your personal life as well? Because it was quite a hectic, busy time.
It was really hectic. And I've reflected upon it now, you know, it's almost a decade since I started medical school. So it's been a journey. So to pay for my medical degree, I worked as a midwife. So time wasn't necessarily, time was a luxury. Mm-hmm. So I knew I was working most weekends. And so I had to find other places to do other things, and also make sure I was studying and revising, because imagine you do all this and then you fail, like, come on. So it was a challenging time because I was juggling a lot. It taught me a lot, though. It taught me so much about prioritizing and things that are important. Is it important right now? Is it important because it's going to be important in a year, 5 year, 10 years, right? And balancing that and prioritizing and managing my time. I think professionally, those were my formative years.
Oh, okay, sure.
Those are my formative years. Obviously, personally, then time is a finite resource. So if a huge chunk of my time is taken up with being at university, studying. If I'm not at university or studying outside of that, then I'm at work. Okay, where do we have time to where do we have time to go clubbing? Where do we have time to you know, right. Yeah. So it was really challenging.
I noticed you have an accent. Where were you born?
Where would you guess? Where would you say if you were to guess? I get 3 main places, so I'll give you 3 guesses.
Oh no, I'm really not great with this game. Ugandan?
Okay, that's the first guess. And the most popular, by the way.
Okay. South African?
Okay, second guess. Least popular, I would say.
Okay, I have no idea.
I'm Zimbabwean.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I should have got that actually.
Maybe it would have been guess number 5.
5.
But I get Ugandan a lot. I'll tell you like a side story.
Okay.
I ordered an Uber once and I was in some random place. When I say random, I mean middle of nowhere, trying to get to another thing. And then the Uber driver was like, oh, I only accepted because I thought when I got in the Uber, he was complaining the whole time because he had to take me from central London to like the depths of, it was a 50-minute drive.
Okay.
And then he was like, I only accepted because I thought you were Ugandan from your name. And I was like, thank you. So being thought to be Ugandan has come in my favor. It has worked in my favor.
Oh gosh. So I'm assuming you were born in Zimbabwe.
I was born in Zim, yes, yeah.
So when did you come to the UK?
When I was about 9 or 10, so primary school age.
Okay. Would you say that's had, I guess having... How do I phrase this? Because I feel like sometimes we face discrimination because A, we're female, B, we're black, C, I find that people that it's easy to tell that you're not necessarily from the UK also face discrimination. Is that something you've experienced in your profession?
I think simply no. Okay. Either I've not seen it or I've not felt it, one or the other. Sometimes you experience things and if your eyes are not there to see it, you just don't see it. Yeah. So I can't think of a time or a period where I felt discriminated against in my professional life because of my ethnicity or my name. From a doctor perspective, if I pass the exam, I've passed the exam. If I'm good at this skill, I'm good at this skill. Now, the difficulty comes where maybe you think about surgeons, let's say, where to become a great surgeon, you need to do lots of surgeries. Now, you need to learn from great surgeons too. And then if all the surgeons are of a particular boys club or, they bond on certain things like, did you watch rugby at the weekend and all of this, and you can't get into that conversation, maybe you're not going to get that phone call to say, there's this rare case coming in. Do you want to come? Yeah. So I think maybe that's where it might impact. But from a doctor perspective, it's not really been a feature.
Okay, sure.
I would say from my business side of things, again, it's not a feature, more so because I live in the space I've created for myself.
Yes. Okay.
And I'm welcomed in that space.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So you became a doctor. To you. So how long have you been working in the profession as a doctor, and when did Galacie Health come about? 5
years as a doctor. Yeah. And it's been a really good 5 years, I would say. COVID was a bit, but it was, I would say I've enjoyed my work for the most part. Galacie came about, started talking about it in about 2023, the beginning of the year. Okay. So much talking. Oh, I think this would be a great idea. Next thing you know,
where did the idea initially come from?
A good friend of mine that I went to university with when I studied midwifery.
Oh, okay.
But she did not study midwifery. She studied actuarial science, which I didn't know what it was until I met her. Obviously, now I know what it is. And you guys can Google it.
She said, I'm not about to explain.
And so she messaged me and she said, I have this idea. It's a women's health insurance company. What do you think? And I was like, oh my God, That would be incredible, because her background as an actuary is all about insurance, and my background is about women's health. So we could really solve a lot of basically she knew all the things that I was harping on about, like the waiting list, the issues that I'm quite vocal about on social media. So she said, this could be the solve for some of these issues that you're highlighting. And I was like, I think you're right. So we spoke about it, and time went. You start speaking about something in January, and before you know it, it's September. Yes. And very little action has happened. And I know exactly what was the kicker. I was working with another company, and it was again a purpose-led women's health company. And so I was working with them, and then our relationship came to a point where we just kind of weren't really seeing how we could continue our relationship. And because nothing was formalized, it felt a little bit like, oh, okay, I've put in all this effort, work and everything, and then because now we can't see a way forward, there's no way to solidify all the stuff that we've done together. And so I went back to my friend and I was like, no, we need to make something formal. And then we registered on Companies House, and from then it was like actually momentum built. Yeah. We just started working.
Okay, sure. Can you just explain exactly what you do with Galacie Health?
We started as a women's health insurance. And the hope for that was, a lot of women are waiting for things that, if you have some income, some disposable income, you might be able to get. So I'll give you an example with myself. I had a symptom. I went to my GP, and I'm also a doctor. I know what this symptom means. I went to my GP. My GP said, absolutely, the symptom could be this, we need to get you looked at. My GP referred me promptly. I went to the specialist. The specialist was like, you're right, you need to be investigated. Why don't we start with a biopsy? And then I went to get the biopsy, and the person who was doing it said, I don't think so. I don't think you need that. In my assessment, this isn't what you need. And I was like, well, in my assessment, in my professional opinion as a doctor, I even threw my doctor title around, imagine, and my GP's professional opinion, and also in the specialist who referred me to you for this biopsy. And they're like, well, that's their opinions. I'm the one doing it, and I'm not going to, because I don't think you need it. Okay. Whew, I was like, okay then. And then they wrote to the specialist. The specialist just discharged me from their clinic. They said, that person said you didn't need this, so you've been discharged. If you want to come back, you have to go back to your GP and think about how long that process is. I said, no, thank you. Went online, found a private provider who I could consult. I saw them. They said, yeah, we agree with the original plan. Okay. 2 days later, I had the biopsy. I had what I needed, and I had been waiting months within the system to get to a point where I saw someone who turned me away on the day of a procedure. So that was one of those things that really highlighted to me, actually, how much did this cost me? It cost me maybe getting my hair done a few times. It cost me less than a holiday. It cost me all these things that I would have spent money on anyway. Yeah. And the peace of mind and my health and well-being, is worth much more. Yes. Yes. So I was lucky that I was able to pay for it. Why don't we make it such that we can do an insurance, just like you pay for your car insurance? You might not need it, but if you do, you dip into that. Yeah. And then, there's that conversation that Bupa and all these other organizations exist with health insurance, but a lot of them don't include women's health things. Oh, right. I know. Wow. I know. Like fertility, a lot of insurances don't cover. So it's that element, which is like, actually, we were not really being looked after at all. So that was the first thing that we were really targeting and aiming at. I'm not a finance person. I am a doctor. I look after people. I want you to have the best health ever. To run an insurance company, you need lots of money. Yes. Lots and lots of money. And so that was a barrier for us for entry into that market. And things changed where then my original co-founder, my friend, we're still very good friends to this day. She was not able to continue with the company. And so now that insurance expertise has left.
Yeah.
And also, I don't have the funds to have an insurance company right now. So I thought, okay, we've put in a lot of work. We've actually started making noise and hopefully getting that conversation going. Yeah. Do we stop here or do we continue? And I thought, okay, let's continue. And the way we continued was with a digital women's health hub, a digital women's health clinic. And that was really, 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 I think one of the best things ever, because we focused on advocacy. Okay. And giving people the tools that they need to be able to say, actually, what do you mean you're discharging me because someone said they're not going to do a procedure that you thought I needed, you know, and putting the tools in place for that. Because like we said, not everyone has or wants to necessarily pay out of pocket to have things done, and they shouldn't have to. Yeah. You're already paying for your National Health Service. You pay tax, you pay all these things. So you shouldn't necessarily have to pay out of pocket for it. So solidifying people with advocacy. Sorry, I also have a bit of a cold.
No worries.
And beyond that, if people did choose to see a private specialist, making sure we're finding them the right private specialist for them. Because, okay, I knew exactly who I needed to go to for what I needed. I knew that if I had just gone to a generic doctor for that, if I'd gone to a generic gynae, they'd have said, oh, let's do the test, let's do this. And then maybe, oh, unfortunately, you've got this. I need to refer you to let's just use an example, an endometriosis specialist, someone who's specialist in laparoscopic surgery. If I knew that's what was needed, I would go straight to the laparoscopic surgery specialist, especially if I'm paying my money. Let me skip all of those.
The unnecessary steps.
And go straight to the right person.
Most people like me, we wouldn't know necessarily who the end person is.
Exactly. So that was part of the service that we provided. And I think that worked really, really well in conjunction with advocacy. We've broadened that to provide consultancy, because what we were getting actually was a lot of businesses coming to us. Because we had built that, we had built a lot of connections with businesses when we were looking at insurance. Because a lot of companies offer insurance for their employees. So we were already having those conversations. So businesses were coming to us saying, okay, I know you guys aren't doing insurance, but we have this thing and we're really looking to help women, to service women with this product or this service. Help us to do that. So that's how we got into consultancy.
Amazing. And I feel like I love your pivot, because I feel like it's more aligned with what your overall goal is. So I sometimes life just goes like this, but the end result is you're able to see this is the reason why it didn't pan out the way I thought initially it would. Amazing. I want to go back to when you were told we're not going to do this surgery. Something about that moment, just how did you feel as you sat there? I was flabbergasted, because there were lots of layers. There were lots of layers to this. It's a procedure. So you fasted, you show up at a certain time. I had to get time off work to make sure I was there. So there were a lot of layers that led me to even just be there. I get there, the pre-nurse has wheeled me to the place, and I'm literally lying on the thing. And they did the first scan to confirm where they will be going. And the person was like, no, I don't think you need it. And then what I really disliked was so in the letter, it had said what I do. And then he said, oh, you're a GP trainee. And then I was like, oh, okay. So you diagnosed yourself because you think.
Right. I said, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. And then it took me, I remember then he's like, oh, no, it's fine. So then I set up and he left. And then the nurse came in to take me back to like the ward or whatever. And then I said to her, can I speak to him? Or she said, maybe, what do you want me to pass on? And then she is bundling me to get out. And then I was like, okay, so this is me now processing. I get back to the ward. Only then had I now processed. So I was like, this happened over 15 minutes at most. By that 15 minutes, I'm back on the ward. And then I said, oh no, can you call him? And the nurse calls him and he refused to speak to me. Wow. Would only answer questions via the nurse. So I passed on the message. Oh, so what's the diagnosis then? If you don't think it's this, what do you recommend? And then they were like, oh no, I'll write to your specialist and then they can make a decision. I did not see the letter that they wrote to the specialist. I only got the letter that my specialist then wrote to me to say that they did their assessment. They thought, no, that wasn't required. And so we have discharged you from the clinic. That's what annoyed me. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry about that.
It's also, it brings into perspective, I don't think I'm special or different from any other person, but I have a voice, but also I have an educational backing where you can't dumb me down.
Yes, yeah.
Especially on medical things. Mm-hmm. And even with that, I had this experience. So it really made me think, like, imagine the person who maybe turns up and health is not their forte. They know something's wrong. They don't know exactly what. And then they've been led to this place with their specialist, and then the specialist sends them there. And then the other person's like, no, you don't need this. Yeah. Okay. And then you're sent home, and then your specialist says, well, I don't need to see you again because the other person said you don't need this. Goodbye.
It's back to square one.
So imagine that.
It reminds me of, I had Candice, she has the Gynae Project.
Yes.
I had her on a podcast and she spoke about when she went for surgery and they offered her no pain medication. They told her she had to be awake. She was in so much pain. She said, I can't go through with this. And the guy was just like, okay. Just wheeled himself away and went onto his phone while she's in floods of tears. Nothing, no dialogue.
Yep.
And then it wasn't until a few months later when she went back and had a female doctor take over. She was like, okay, we can put you to sleep. We can give you all of these things. And it's like, that wasn't even offered to her initially. It's just, these things keep coming up and it just makes you think, what is the problem? Like, why do women repeatedly have to go through these things?
Yep.
And to hear that you were partly qualified, almost fully qualified at that time, and I
was a doctor.
And it didn't make a difference.
I was a doctor.
Yeah.
Zero difference.
Yeah.
So
is that something that you think of often when you're dealing with women now, with what you do?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's not that you have to go through experiences to know how to be empathetic. You don't. You can be empathetic. But sometimes, as part of our work, we work in teams a lot, you know. I rotated through various jobs where I'm part of a team. And in that team, let's say someone has that experience where they say, actually, I don't think I can go through with this. Me as a team member, I might not be the surgeon, but I can, when we walk out, I can say, actually, don't you think this? Or what about this? Or I think you should do this. Or I think I can suggest things, you know. And sometimes I think that empathy is lacking amongst people. I think it's a symptom across society, but in healthcare, sometimes I'm finding that empathy is missing. For the consultations that I have, particularly in GP, time is a limiting factor. So that's a big issue. Yeah. Because if we want to unpack things, the time that I've got is not going to be the time.
Minutes per appointment.
It's not the time to unpack everything. And that can be frustrating for people because you're like, well, didn't you read my notes? You know, I've been here 50 times with this thing. Why do I now need to update you from scratch? Okay, let's say that 10-minute appointment, that includes time to read your notes. That includes the time for you to go from the waiting room into the room, to take your jacket off, to sit down.
To do the pleasantries, yeah.
So I think sometimes that can be difficult. But that's where I think rapport building, seeing the same specialist, things like that are important. And the health service is trying its best, but sometimes people are getting that outside of the health service, where you can see the same doctor. If you've got a good relationship, they know what you've experienced and things like that. So, yeah.
It's funny because after having conversations with women on this podcast, so Candice, Abby, she spoke about her journey with PCOS. I've had a few health things going on this year, and I've been very intentional about requesting. I won't use the app. I'll call and request the same doctor.
Yeah.
Because I'm not starting again. I can't do this. And some of them, it's like they're unsure, or they'll be like, okay, let's book it. No, I'm just booking the same person, and we are continuing where we left off.
Yep.
So I think that is an important thing to note. It does make a difference. I think, yeah.
I agree.
What are some of the? I know we have to wrap up soon. I'm so sad. What would you recommend to a woman that is facing a particular health issue? She thinks she knows what needs to be done, but she doesn't necessarily have the language to explain or to get the results that she's after. What would you explain are the steps, or what steps would you suggest she makes?
Absolutely. I think that is not an uncommon situation where people feel they have an understanding of what's going on, but actually are not moving forward in their care. I would say the first thing is keep a symptom diary, so you know what's going on at what time. And so if you feel someone is dismissing you on the basis of not enough information, then you can say, actually, here's the information.
Yes.
Here's the log of when I have this symptom or that symptom and what it's associated with. The next thing I would say is, where possible, have a little look around research-wise. We have access to the internet, and the internet is good if you know how to use it. All the same resources I can use as a doctor, you can also access. So things like NICE, N-I-C-E, that's where we get our guidance and our guidelines. And there's something called NICE CKS, which is like a summary. So if you think you have a particular condition, then going on the NICE site for that condition, particularly the summary, and saying, oh, okay, if my doctor suspects this suggests these blood tests or images, maybe I can suggest this to my doctor. Yeah. So you say, I saw it on the NICE website, I saw it on the NHS website, I think I've got this condition and it suggests this. And if they then say, I don't think that's what we need to do, then okay, help me understand why. Is it because that they think actually it's not this condition, it's something else? Or is it that they can't access that investigation or that blood test because they're your GP and you need a specialist for that, but to get to the specialist you have to have done this instead, all these little hoops. But I think just always coming to appointments with your ideas, concerns and expectations. If you can bring someone with you, definitely do. Okay. Just sometimes we live in a society where we don't want people in our business. Even our mums, we don't want our mums or our siblings in our business. But sometimes just having someone who's in your corner, who can hear, and also, you talk before the appointment, say, oh, I want to ask about this, I want to get this, I want to do this. Then they might remember to say, oh, what about this? Or you haven't addressed this. So just having someone who's in your corner. We do have free resources. We've got an advocacy roadmap on the Galacie website. So just stuff like that to look at, okay, part 1, part 2, part 3. And there's lots and lots of organizations out there now, charitable organizations that are focused on helping people get to the answers that they need. And when they don't get to the answers, send that email. Write that complaint if you need to. Do you know what I mean? If you've been made to feel a particular way, don't feel like you're being a bother by then taking it a step further. You might stop someone else having that experience.
Yeah, sure. Where do you send the email to?
It depends. So let's say you've been going back, let's say you can't get an appointment at your GP surgery and it's been months and months and months and you can't get an appointment. Maybe write to the practice manager if you can. If not, write to your MP. Okay. Dear MP, I've been trying to get this appointment, I can't. Again, I'm going to go back to the MP. Let's say you've been on a gynae waiting list, like 750,000 other women in England, and your appointment is in 8 months' time, but you can't go to work because of your symptoms. You can't do life, because of your symptoms. And you've tried to get in touch with the department to say you're happy for a short notice appointment, all these things, and still nothing. Write to your MP. Why are you my elected official when the waiting list is like this? What are you doing about it? So those are some of the places that you can write to, but there's always options.
Yeah. and consult with Galacie Health, of course.
Definitely come to us. We're always welcome. And I would say we have lots of free resources. I think that's a great place to start, is just some of those free advocacy resources to guide as a starting point.
Yeah, sure. No, I love that. And I love the points that you made. And I love the point that you made on building rapport with your doctor, and then the steps that you just mentioned. Yeah. No, it's been good. It's been very helpful. Changing gears slightly.
Yes.
What does self-care mean to you?
What does self-care mean to me? I think now I'm entering a point in my life where convenience is becoming more and more important. We're speaking about this earlier, is paying for convenience if I can. And so this is an example, and you guys can judge me if you want. I'm opening myself up to judgment. So if work is really, really busy, so I'm working on calls, long days, weekends, and in addition to that, I'm also running a business. So it's like finding time everywhere. Sometimes my house is a mess. Yeah. It is an utter, complete mess. And so I have someone who helps clean my house.
Oh, 100%.
So that for me is self-care.
Yeah.
It's things like that, where a clean house is important because it'll help my brain function. But where am I going to find the 2-3 hours to make sure my house is clean, you know?
Energy, yeah.
So yeah, that's what self-care means to me.
Yeah, I love that. Say you've had a very busy day, stressful, crazy appointments at the surgery, you get home, what are you doing to relax?
I am popping some popcorn because I love popcorn.
Yes, what flavour?
Salt.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sweet and salty.
Sweet and salty if I'm buying it. If I'm buying it, sweet and salty. But I can't get a good sweet and salty at home. I don't know why.
What do I like? Butter kissed or proper corn? I like between the two.
So I like have the kennels, you know, from like the corner shop or Bossman shop, the kennels, put them oil in the pan. Oh, that's how I make my popcorn.
Oh, organic.
Right.
Okay.
So
it's healthy.
I haven't quite figured out how to get the sweet balance with that, but salty is always nice. Yeah. So I'll have some popcorn. I will make some hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate. It's just so comforting.
Marshmallows?
Yes.
Okay.
Does not matter how hot it is outside. It could be 30 degrees. If I need a comfort, like a hug, hot chocolate does that for me. So I'll do some hot chocolate. And then most likely find like a show to watch. Okay. You know, something where I don't have to use my brain cells. I can just laugh or reminisce. It depends. If it's been a heavy day and I want to be in my feels, I would watch like a Gilmore Girls because that puts me in my feels. Yeah. If it's been a heavy day and I don't want to be in my feels, I would watch like, I don't know, maybe a YouTube show or like something humorous, something that I can laugh with. I'm enjoying vlogs, actually. I'm enjoying just having someone else's life in the background.
I was saying to someone in an earlier vlog podcast episode, I really enjoy boring vlogs.
Yes.
At home, going shopping. I'm like, yes, live your life.
Exactly. So stuff like that is really nice. I enjoy that. Yeah, it will probably be something super trashy.
Okay. What are you watching at the moment?
Show-wise, I'm not watching any shows, so I will take recommendations. I would definitely take any recommendations.
On Netflix.
I've heard about this. Yeah. Okay, maybe I need to watch it. The last show I watched was Paradise on Disney Plus.
I loved Paradise. It was so 10/10. It was so good.
Exactly. So if Forever is
it's completely different. It will have you in your feels.
Okay.
You'll be like, oh, young love is just
so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. It's just tragic. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Finished, but yeah.
I'll add Forever to my list. But I'm back in the work zone now. So
okay, sure.
The stuff that I'm watching is very work related. Okay, yeah. That's Always growing. So if you were to see my suggested right now, you'll be like, oh, this is so dull. Why are we Diary of a CEO again?
I keep that on. I keep Ladies Who Launch on.
Love Ladies Who Launch. Absolutely love Ladies Who Launch. Yeah, that's a good one. Rochelle. Anyway, I could have us all day chatting.
No, I love it. Thank you so much. It's been so good. I like to ask my guests to leave a final takeaway, your mantra for life that you want to share with the audience.
My mantra for life that I would like to share with the audience. Okay. Don't be afraid to make a fuss.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to make a fuss.
When does that come up for you? Daily or just when it's necessary?
At least, okay, when it's necessary. I was going to say at least once a week, but when it's necessary. Depending, I'm at that point right now. Like I said, I'm back in the work zone. So I have to make some fusses. But if I'm not in a super intense work zone, then like every so often we have to make a fuss. And that could be about yourself. That could be about your loved ones. You could take that how you will, you know, but don't be afraid to make a fuss. Don't be afraid to be seen sometimes, you know, or to be seen trying either.
Oh, wow. I love that. I really love that. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming down. This was such a good conversation. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you for sharing your tips. I'm sure the audience enjoyed the episode. Be sure to share anything that resonated with you or any questions that you might have for Dr. Rumbi in the comment section below. She'll be sure to answer, or we'll, get an answer from her. Can you let everyone know where they can find you online?
I am enjoying LinkedIn at the moment. Yeah, I'm really enjoying LinkedIn, spending a lot less time on other social media, more time on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me there. And I love YouTube. Yes. Absolutely love YouTube. And again, I'm finding myself spending more time there. So LinkedIn is Rumbi Matenga, so just my name. YouTube is Dr. Rumbi. I think Instagram is Dr. Rumbi as well.
Yes, yeah.
And
are you on TikTok?
I am on TikTok, but don't message me on TikTok because I won't see it. I only learned the other day that TikTok has messages.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't even scroll on that tab.
So please, if you want to actually speak to me, not TikTok, because I won't see it. It will be 2 years and you'll be like, that Rumbi girl, she was so friendly, but she didn't even reply to my message. So yeah, it's Dr. Rumbi on TikTok and Dr. Rumbi without the it's on most other social media. LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn.
If you want a response, LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect.
Instagram, I stopped Instagram for Lent this year. Well, I stopped Instagram and TikTok for Lent this year. And then since then, I've just not had... I could go a whole week without logging in and I'm okay with that. So yeah, LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. I'll have all of your socials.
Thank you.
Links below. But thank you again for coming down. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, be sure to like, comment and subscribe for future podcast episodes. Other than that, I guess take care, stay blessed and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.